Hi guys and welcome back. This week I actually seen something that caught my eye. So obviously kids shows are being rebooted now. It just seems to be like the big thing in the 2020s. The fact that we're kind of going for nostalgia more than anything else. But we're now going for nostalgia back in the 2000s, not just like 80s or 90s nostalgia. So the thing that is currently happening is rebooting Disney Channel shows or Nickelodeon shows. For example, Wizard of Waverly Place has just got a new show. Malcolm in the Middle's just got a new show, and there is plenty others that I can't think of off the top of my head. There was one that obviously there's been a big issue with the environment on these kids shows that I actually kind of was like, I would like to speak about, because obviously it's not a nice thing in general what happened in these shows, and all the actors seem to have a totally different experience on the shows than what the viewers had. So I was going to talk about Raven-Symoné. I think that's how you say their name. I don't want to butcher anything, but hopefully you understand what I mean. They have their own podcast called Tea Time with Raven and Miranda, where one clip kind of went viral, I would maybe say, but not too viral because I've only seen it once since it came out, where it tarnishes how I see That's So Raven, because it was a show that I did watch all the time when I was younger. I loved it. I had an older brother that watched it, so it was like it was like a childhood show, even though maybe I was a tiny bit young at the time. I did watch it even in the 2010s because it was still getting reruns. So yeah, I'll just play the clip for you.
I feel like when I was on TSR, That's So Raven, I felt like boys watched the show because I had big boobs.
Really?
I do. I feel like that was...
So obviously that's a clip that I actually can't find the original. It's had to be from this creator specifically. They will be linked in the description. But the fact they think that is so not nice, if that makes sense. Like the fact that they're thinking the reason that we're watching it was for that, when I was 6 to 10 at the time. Like, it's not something that even passed in my mind. And obviously that's coming from maybe the experience they had in the show and the fact that that's just how sets were at the time, it seems. But it's so unfair that she's kind of like blaming us as the viewers for what happened to her. Well, that's the wrong wording, but us as the viewers for maybe her experience, not what happened to her, because obviously whatever, I don't know exactly what happened, I'm just presuming because of the environment of the shows at the time. And actually it does tarnish the name of it a wee bit, and the fact that it's a shame that she sees herself in that way, that she thinks that that's the only reason people watch the show, not because they enjoyed it, not because it was good writing, not because it was just fun in general. Like, I really like the show. I would say it's probably one of my favourite shows at the time, and that's the experience that they got from it. But because of that, this video was supposed to be done a couple of weeks ago, but I wasn't able to. I've been really busy. But it actually is a good segue into the next thing about Ned's Declassified podcast, where one of the lead actors had a meltdown on social media that I'm actually not going to show because it's not nice on them. If you'd like to go see it, I'm sure you'll be able to find it yourself. I don't want to show that specifically, but I'll go in and explain why I believe that it's not getting a reboot. This is Ned Declassified, which was a Nickelodeon show that I don't even remember that much. I watched Nickelodeon at the time and I just don't really remember it. I remember most shows from the time, but not this one for some reason. I actually don't know why.
Do you remember the first that I
What are
gave
you gonna ask on this
Do you
podcast? First what?
BJ?
I actually do. You really want to talk about this on the pod?
I just wanted to say that I felt like a failure from that point because
He didn't finish.
I know. Yep.
No.
Oh. You didn't. You didn't. After a moment, he just said, "Thanks, okay," and you got up and you went to the bathroom and you did your thing.
No. I don't remember that
100%.
at all.
So these guys would have, I've not seen the rest of the podcast clip, but these guys are specifically talking about the time, I think, when they were on the show. That's the full point in it. And the fact that they would have been between the ages of like 14 and 17 at the time. I think it's kind of rubbing up people the wrong way, because I understand having these conversations with your friend being like, oh, I did this when I was like this age. Because it's you at the time, you don't realise that it's wrong, do you know what I mean? But it's fine in your friendship group because you're like chatting amongst yourself. It's a safe space. Like, you can't say things that... A lot of people did things like that at the ages, obviously, but the fact that they're plastering over the internet is probably not the best thing, and it's creating a lot of issues with people not really wanting to watch the podcast anymore because of such like deep sexual tones they're putting into it, which are making people a bit uncomfortable again. It's kind of tarnishing the name of this show that people are like, oh well, I like the show, but I don't want to hear about that stuff. But then there's like a weird argument as well, being like, that's what podcasts are as well. Like, you talk about everything. It is kind of supposed to be like you're listening in a conversation. Like, some of the podcasts I listen to have stuff that's like the exact same as that, but to be fair, they're adults at the time I was talking about it, and they're talking about adult experiences whilst they were also adults. So it's such a hard topic to like approach, and the fact that Lindsay Shaw is the woman's name kind of had a breakdown on Instagram complaining about the fact that they're not getting a Ned Reclassified reboot, or she was like, even a shitty film. I think it kind of shows that maybe, ironically, what you do on the internet stays with you, and the fact that they're talking about all this could possibly be a reason that they're not getting this reboot that they want. But there's also a thing of lots of people just say it was a filler show. Like, I don't remember it, and I watched Nickelodeon at the time, so like, and there would have been reruns of it, and I still don't remember it. So obviously there's maybe some like, it just wasn't that good of a show, and it was, some people saying it's a filler show, so that's why it's not getting its reboot.
Dude, I ran through every Ned's cast member before I landed on Devin.
Damn.
Remember that?
The chosen one. You take that one of two ways.
I just remember like telling Theo that I liked him, and we like held hands at the movies.
He's so mysterious. How
And
could you not?
Rob.
Yep.
And then Dev was
Rob's
like,
funny.
hey. And I was like, fuck you guys. Hey.
Yeah, you definitely had your pick for
Yeah.
a minute there.
Yeah.
Between Rob, Theo, and me. Any others?
No, Kyle scared me.
Really?
Because he had used that big dong on, he had already lost his virginity.
Oh, you needed some.
Wow.
So once again, I don't mean to specifically specify on this woman here. It just happens these are clips that I found. I'm sure the other two do talk about stuff like this as well. But the fact that she is talking about like a 17, I don't know what age the person was, where she's specifically been like, oh, they lost their virginity. I think it doesn't give nice tones to it, and it gives like a strong message of like, oh, all we used to do is hook up, which is fair enough. I don't disagree with anyone doing that. You're allowed to do that. It's your own free will. But I think it's just the fact that they were children at the time that is personally my biggest issue, and that's an issue with podcasts, to be honest. The fact that they've wanted this, and maybe, I don't mean to be rude to the people or anything like that, because I understand if it's something you enjoy doing and it's something that maybe you're known for and you're happy to be known for, it's fine. But I think they're maybe clinging to this like thing that was only a 3-season show, that maybe they've not been able to get any other work, which seems to be a common thing from actors from like kids shows to adult, because it's like a different type of acting. And it is unfair on them, because they've like grew up in this universe where they're famous, they're this, they're that, and then all of a sudden at 18, let's just say they stop acting on Nickelodeon at 18, it's gone. Like, they're just no longer doing it. They can't get these roles for the new one. They can't get roles in proper act. I'm saying the wrong things here. This is proper acting, but you know what I mean? Like, as in dramatic acting or even comedy acting, it's still a different type of acting from comedy acting to this. And I understand why maybe it's a hard thing. Like, in theory, they peaked their acting career between the ages of like 14 and 17, which must be the worst thing ever. Gaten Matarazzo, I'm definitely butchering his name, but he plays Dustin in Stranger Things. He's actually spoke on it in an interview before. He's 22 now, but he spoke on an interview saying the fact that he believes Stranger Things is going to be the best thing he's ever done. He's like, I've peaked early, it's the best thing I've ever done. But he's happy to accept that, and he's like, well, I've got money, like, I'm happy. And he still wants to act. He's not going like, oh no, I don't want to act. He's doing stage shows, he's doing musicals, I think, I could be wrong, but I think he's got it sussed out. Like, he's been smart about it. He's like, I don't think I'm going to do much better than Stranger Things, but do you know what? I'm still going to enjoy the craft that I chose to do. And I feel like I could be totally wrong about this, but the guys that do Ned's Declassified, maybe they aren't in it for the love of acting. They're maybe in it for, like, not the fame, but like people saying it's an easier job to act, like being on screen and stuff like that. Where Dustin, I'll just say Dustin because I can't say his real name, has been like, oh well, I know I've peaked, but I'm happy. And honestly, it's kind of rooting for me for him to do better. Like, you want him to do better because of it.
It's us now, which will lead to varying results.
Oh yeah, results may vary. You know.
Yeah. So basically, Ned's Pod and Podco, we are breaking up amicably, right?
We love it.
We're all going in different directions. They're dropping some shows, so we are now production company-less, but
We independent.
yeah, which is cool.
So Ned Declassified actually got dropped from their podcast people, which I think kind of came after some controversies with Lindsay Shaw and just the fact of what they talked about on the podcast, which obviously was maybe creating some issues with that podcast network. But there's also maybe it wasn't doing well and that's why it's been dropped, but they've just decided to keep it going. There's so many questions that are basically unanswered here, but I suppose we'll see in the coming months. So at the time I was actually reading the description of Ned Podcast, it is their sponsor for that specific episode I'm talking about. Actually, that kind of proves my point here. Their sponsor for this video is Blue Chew. Blue Chew is a sexual helper. It's a Viagra essentially. And I think that's a very interesting thing to be sponsored by on a podcast that's not for children, but supposed to be reliving childhood memories, essentially. It's a nostalgia podcast. Hopefully that video did make sense, because I feel like I went down a wee bit of a rabbit hole there more than the research that I'd done already gave me. Sorry I haven't been posting that much. I was a bit swamped with uni work, but now that I'm done with uni for this term at least, I'll be able to post a bit more. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, comment, and subscribe.